policies and procedures. Through hearings, oversight inquiries, and legislation, we've been working to get to the bottom of these issues and raise awareness of the urgent need to fix them. Recent revelations that the TSA cleared for employment individuals with potential ties to terrorism demonstrate the dire need for improved, streamlined procedures at TSA. The findings released by the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General over the last few weeks are indeed alarming. In May, the Inspector General released a report that found that TSA did not have the appropriate controls in place to ensure that screening equipment has necessary maintenance work performed. A few weeks ago, news outlets reported test results showing that screeners failed to detect prohibited threat items 96% of the time. And just last week, we learned that 73 airport employees with potential ties to terrorism were issued credentials which allowed them to get access to secure areas of airports. These more recent findings come out on the heels of revelations earlier this year of security breaches by employees at major U.S. airports involving a nationwide gun smuggling ring and an employee of the FAA bypassing security and flying with a loaded firearm using a sided badge. More recently, we learned of a drug trafficking ring operating out of the airport in Oakland, California. All of these findings individually are concerning, and in the aggregate, well, they just shake the public's confidence and only further demonstrate the need for steady leadership at TSA to work through the many issues that plague this agency. This committee will continue to lead efforts to close the security loopholes and ensure the continuing safety and security of our nation's aviation system. The purpose of today's hearing is to thoroughly examine the identified security gaps highlighted in the most recent IG report about aviation worker vetting and find ways to improve the vetting process to ensure that these vulnerabilities are addressed and the American people can feel safe and secure when traveling. Aviation workers are supposed to be thoroughly vetted due to their continuing access to sensitive areas of airports and the fact that they hold a position of trust within the transportation system. However, as the IG report has found so clearly, there are significant shortfalls in the vetting policies for aviation workers. For example, the IG found that TSA does not have access to all the data it may need to thoroughly check an aviation worker's potential ties to terrorism. However, what is even more alarming is that a memo was sent to the TSA administrator last year noting the need for additional information, and TSA has still yet to resolve this gap a year later. The report also found that airports do not match the expiration date of an employee's credentials to the expiration of their legal work authorization in the United States. Again, while TSA stated they are working to resolve these issues by the end of the calendar year, it raises serious concerns that this gap exists in the first place. Therefore, I've sponsored HR 2750, the Improved Security Vetting for Aviation Workers Act of 2015, which I introduced last week, along with Chairman McCall and Ranking Member Rice and Congressman Payne, to close these security gaps and ensure the safety and security of the transportation networks. The reality is, in this post-9/11 world, that the terrorist threat is metastasizing, and we as a nation must remain responsive to any holes in our security of our transportation systems and ensure that the protocols keep pace with the ever-evolving threat landscape. Improving the vetting of the aviation workers who have access to these sensitive areas of airports can help close another backdoor vulnerability at our nation's airports. At today's hearing, we have representatives from the TSA, the DHS Inspector General himself, and GAO to address how the recommendations highlighted in the report can be implemented and what tools are needed to improve the security at our nation's airports. I look forward to hearing their testimony and having a meaningful dialogue on how we can better protect this vital transportation mode and keep aviation safe and secure for the American people. The chair now recognizes the ranking minority member of the subcommittee, the gentle lady from New York, Ms. Rice, for any statement she may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for convening this hearing. We have an important question to answer today. How can we do a better job vetting aviation workers? How can we do a better job ensuring that criminals and terrorists cannot get a job in one of our airports and gain access to secure areas? Clearly, if a terrorist were to penetrate an airport in that way, the results could be catastrophic. We have to trying to do just that. We have to assume that we can prevent it. We have to keep working together aggressively and proactively to strengthen our security, find and close the gaps, and stay one step ahead. TSA is responsible for vetting diverse groups of people, from the Transit Worker Identification Credential Program to PreCheck to aviation worker programs. Aviation workers themselves are a diverse group of people who play many different and important roles within the commercial airport environment, from the person who works at the newsstand beyond the security checkpoints to the mechanic who has to access to the plane itself to perform his or her duties. What these two people have in common is that they both go to work every day beyond the checkpoints in the secure area of the airport. And we have to do everything within our power to ensure that people who go to work in these secure areas are exhaustively vetted, both before employment and on a recurring basis, and prove themselves to be trustworthy. Lastly, the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General issued a report that detailed how 73 individuals with links to terrorism were able to get jobs with airlines and airport vendors and were cleared to access secure areas. That is unacceptable. First, we should all be grateful to the Inspector General for bringing this to our attention, and to know that this threat was out there, to think about what could have happened, should be all the motivation we need to work together, act swiftly, and do what needs to be done to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's why we're here today. It's not to create a spectacle or cast blame. We're here to figure out how this happened, what we need to learn from it, and what we need to do to close this gap in our security. I also want to point out that Inspector General Roth himself noted that TSA's vetting process was, quote, generally effective. So that's not the problem here. As far as I understand, there seem to be two main factors that allowed this to happen. Number one, because of the current interagency watch list policy, TSA doesn't have access to databases that would have captured the individuals in question and alerted TSA to their terrorism indicators. That too is simply unacceptable and has to change. TSA should have had access to all information about these individuals. TSA should have access to any and all information that will make their vetting process as exhaustive as possible. Number two, the report also made it clear that TSA's own databases are a mess. 87,000 employee files without social security numbers, many with no passport number or proof of citizenship, 300 files with no full name for the employee. There's no excuse for that. It strikes me, as I'm sure everyone, as sloppy, and there's no place for sloppiness when we're dealing with the security of our nation's aviation system. We strive for a security system that's airtight and precise, and in order to achieve that, our information must be airtight. Everything we do must be precise. The Inspector General's office has issued 6 recommendations, all of which will help to address these issues, and I appreciate the fact that TSA has concurred with these recommendations and is already taking steps to implement them. I look forward to hearing more about these issues and corrective actions today, and after this hearing, I look forward to taking up legislation authored by myself and Chairman Katko that will codify recommendations from this report and from another OIG report that details the need for TSA to properly manage its airport screening equipment maintenance program. I want to thank each one of our witnesses for being here today. I'm eager to hear all of your testimony and have a productive conversation about how we can do a better job vetting aviation workers, how we can do a better job keeping airports secure, and primarily keeping passengers safe. Mr. Chairman, I thank you again for convening this hearing, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The Chairman of the Homeland Security Full Committee, Mr. McCall, plans on coming here making a statement. When he comes, we will give an opportunity to do so. He's held up in another hearing, and I'll extend the same courtesy to Mr. Thompson if he shows up. With respect to other members of the committee, I want to remind you that opening statements may be submitted for the record. We are pleased to have several distinguished witnesses before us today on this important topic. Let me remind the witnesses that their entire written statements will appear in our record. As somebody that's well familiar to this committee and to Homeland Security as a whole is Mr. Roth. Welcome back, and thank you for your continuing good work, sir. Ms. Fitzmaurice from the Homeland Security Committee, or of TSA, thank you for being here. And Ms. Grover, thank you for being here as well. Mr. Roth,